In case you're wondering, Expendables 2 didn't screen for critics. I can't imagine why. Maybe we'll get to it some other time, but right now I don't really care, because this means I have room to tell you about Paranorman, which is not only a terrific film that you should make it a point to see as soon as you can, I think this might actually be my favorite movie that I've seen this year. Yes, even over that one. I'm a little hesitant to give it that much praise, though, since it's actually kind of a small, modest production, but it's one of the things I like best about it. In an age where quote-unquote family films all try to be these huge-scale, constantly fast-moving roller coaster rides in order to hold the attention of the youngest in the audience, Paranorman has enough faith in and respect for its own intimately focused narrative, grounded in a human story of authentic characters, that it's willing to take its time on things like mood and thematic resonance. I'm also keenly aware that the film, however good it is, may have simply pushed my buttons, inasmuch as it's a stop-motion animated zombie flick centered on a lonely, misunderstood boy obsessed with monster movies, growing up in suburban New England who discovers that he is the only one who can stop his cursed hometown from an outbreak of the living dead. I mean, geez, throw in some pitch-dark plot twists and wry social commentary about the emptiness and ugliness of quote-unquote normal middle American social culture, and they could pretty much call this Bob the Movie. Oh my god, they put that in too. But then again, I typically end up not being crazy for movies that nakedly pander to my particular demographic as a substitute for simply being good, hence why I was so-so on Super 8, which frankly wishes it could be as good as Paranorman when it grows up. Anyway, our title character is Norman Babcock, who'd probably be a lonely, nerdy kid anyway given his disposition and horror movie fixation, but is flat out ostracized as the local freak show for other reasons. Norman has the ability to talk to ghosts, and of course, nobody believes him. In a nice change of pace, Norman overall seems to have already made peace with his circumstances before the film opens. Unfortunately, forces outside his control conspire to force him out of his own self-imposed introversion. Norman lives in the town of Blythe Hollow, a brutal but affectionate and, I can tell you firsthand, wholly accurate parody of Salem, Massachusetts, that has built a local tourism industry around a witch trial and subsequent witch's curse that supposedly occurred some 300 years ago. Without spoiling too much of what turns out to be a very good mystery, Norman discovers that the curse is actually real and his ghost-whispering powers are somehow key to preventing it from actually coming to pass. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned, and the curse places Blythe Hollow under attack by the zombified corpses of the town's Puritan founders, forcing Norman and a motley crew of his older sister, his friend Neil, Neil's older brother, and the school bully to seek out a way to set things right and discover the dark truth behind Blythe Hollow's real history. The obvious point of comparison here will be to The Sixth Sense, though I'd say it shares more in common tonally with another kids and ghosts film, The Lady in White. The main difference being that The Sixth Sense was a movie where the big impending danger was keeping Cole Sear from a life of crippling depression, while Paranorman is more of an adventure story with immediate life or death stakes for the people in question, which is quite a feat considering that these are all obviously handmade animated figures courtesy Laika Animation, the folks behind Coraline. Paranorman basically does everything right. There's literally no place where I can find any kind of fault. The characters are all extremely well developed, even the supporting cast, and every time I thought I had it figured out, it threw another curveball in terms of what was actually going on. In particular, an inventive new spin on what a zombie curse is actually supposed to do, and a mounting series of plot reveals that bravely stretch the boundaries of what's supposed to be allowable in a kids movie. The film is rated PG instead of G, and it seems to have been earned more for story points and ideas than visuals, which is pretty rare these days. The best thing about Paranorman, outside of being just an exceptionally well-written and directed film, is its refusal to rest on its laurels. Zombies, misunderstood childhoods, and references to 1980s kid adventure flicks hit a lot of lucrative sweet spots in terms of marketability, but the film never devolves into just doing a shout-out for shout-out's sake or pandering for audience sympathy. It's telling a real story about human characters, aided by probably the best facial expression animation in the history of stop motion. Thanks to groundbreaking use of new 3D printing technology, it manages to make its audience sincerely care about the fates of its characters, living and dead. This is a movie that likes to punctuate its darkest plot twists not with jokes, but with periods of grim silence to let things sink in, which is rare in real horror movies and almost impossible to find in scary movies ostensibly made for kids. There's a lot more I want to say about this one, but all of them would involve dropping spoilers that would be deeply uncool at this stage. Suffice it to say, Paranorman is one of the best films of the year, and you owe it to yourself to check it out, particularly in these dog days of August. Paranorman, no notes. I was completely right about this movie. It is great. Laika has done banger after banger after banger, which is why I feel like this one gets somewhat overlooked because it came out right after Coraline. But yeah, if you haven't been back and looked at this one lately, it is still great. It holds up. Thought it was terrific.